are we doing today? All right, looks like we got audio today. Looks like we have everything we need. Ugh. I hope you're having a good week. Mine's going pretty good. I'm not going to complain too much. Busy, but to be honest with you, that's the way I like it. Definitely like a busy week. Just want to drop this down. Sometimes this sits a little high, so it's a little hard to do when you're working on it. So let's see, what do we have today? So today we're going to be doing some sous vide salmon. We're going to do some truffled mashed potatoes. We're going to do the easiest mashed potatoes in the history of mashed potatoes, and they are kind of amazing. If you enjoy mashed potatoes, you're a fan, this could, I don't want to say change your life. That's being a little melodramatic, but it definitely could, it'll speed up the process, and I think it gives you a lighter, fluffier mashed potato. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do some string beans. This is a very, very traditional meal today, and I hope to have this wrapped up in my 90-minute time frame. So I got some green tea. I see you slowly starting to filter in. So let's get started here. I do need to grab some butter. We will need that. Because, you know, you always need butter, right? Now, sous vide, I have it going over here. So this is basically, I have it running and pre-warming. You don't have to do that. I'm doing it today because I am cooking salmon, which should take about half an hour to cook, all things said and done, and having pre-warmed water will just speed that process up. All right, let's get the salmon out. Alrighty, now I picked these up from my local purveyor. They're doing a pretty cool pickup thing right now where like the same purveyors that service restaurants you can buy from right now. It's kind of unusual. And what I do is I get a box and it's just packed full of meats. This last one had a fillet butt. It had two like 5-pound chubs of ground beef. It's like 6 breasts of chicken. It had 4 salmon. So it was a pretty packed box, and it was only like $120, which when you think about it, this is going to feed my wife and I for like literally 2 weeks. So it was a steal. Now, what we do want to do is we want to get this out of here so that we can get it ready. So I do want to dry it off a little bit and get some of the moisture off of these. So I'm just going to do it onto a paper towel. And we're just going to cut our packs open. All right, nice fillets. Now, I will tell you, when I do sous vide, I kind of prefer to have skin on fillet, just because think about what's happening in a sous vide is this is actually cooking our food. So when it comes time to put it in the pan and to sear it up, having the skin on kind of helps hold it all together. What you might see when this comes out is that it might be a little flaky and it might try and escape. So bear in mind that could be a result today. So we're going to kind of watch for that. Let's see. So we have our fillets here. Let's see if I have my, how's that? Oh, there you go. All right. We'll move it over so you can see it both ways. So now I'm happy to do a lot of different things. You know, you could just put a couple lemon slices in here and put some dill, and that's completely fine. I like to do a little bit of a spice on mine as opposed to fresh herbs. When I do a white fish, I really like a nice fresh herb for that. But for salmon, I don't know. I think dill and salmon's kind of a little overdone. So not a big deal. So what I'm going to do is I have my fillets here. I have a half of a lime that has donated its life It's not looking too hot, but it'll do for this because, you know, so many gin and tonics one can have, right? Now, I have a couple thoughts. Now, I have some of this Paul Prudhomme's Salmon Magic. This is really nice. Not a blackening spice. I do make my own blackening spice, but the wife does not like blackened salmon, so we will not do that. But that's completely fine. This one's also a lot of fun. This is like a smokehouse maple that McCormick makes. This is really nice. A little on the sweet side, so bear that in mind. And then this is something special. This is Berkey's Happy Mouth seasoning, and I always have this on hand. Now, it's really good on salmon and everything. It's got a nice spice blend, but I keep it in a little ball jar in my spice drawer, so I always have it handy. Great option. You know, hit up Berkey if you need some. I highly recommend it. It's great on, my goodness, I use it on potatoes. It's just a good all-purpose kind of seasoning without being, oh my goodness, you're eating barbecue, kind of in your face. So, highly recommend. So let's do a little bit of the smokehouse maple. I like it just because I like it. It's got a little sweetness going on. Dope. Now you also don't really need to season because this has got a decent amount of salt in it. So we're not going to bother too much with that. All right. So the real trick to sous vide means cooking so in a vacuum, okay? Now, I could go get my vacuum press and we could use it, but then I would just probably make you want to buy one. And while it's handy, it's not super required, okay? And I'll show you. We're going to use this Ziploc bag today. I'm just going to lay my fillets in here. And you kind of want, I like to keep them close together so that there's no gaps. Kind of allows them to cook as one. All right. Now we're going to take some of our lime and we're just going to squeeze this in here. Or lime. Yeah. All right. And then let's just take, now you don't need a lot, but I just think it helps if you just throw about 1 pat of butter in here. And you can put it right in the middle because that will get everywhere. All right. Let me unplug that. We're gonna I'll bring this over here so y'all can see it. And then what I'm gonna do is, all right, this is just a commercial tub. You can get them on Amazon. Is just slowly start dipping this in. And then you're gonna push it. All right, and then once you get down to the end, I'm gonna start to zip it and leave this end open. And then just continue to push it into the very warm water. And what's happening is the pressure of the water is pulling all the air out, or at least enough of it that we can use. All right, we're going to put this back on. All right, now salmon is one of those things that you can get really, really close to temperatures on. And 2 degrees can really make a difference. Me, personally, if I'm gonna sear the salmon afterwards, 127 Fahrenheit is perfect salmon for me. All right, that means it's up to temp because we preheated our water. We're gonna let it run. I'm gonna put a lid on it. All right. And we'll let that go for a good half hour. All right, I'm just putting a timer on so I remember. Now, let's talk about the easiest mashed potatoes you've ever made. So we're gonna take a potato, and honestly, when I teach this in class, I just cut it in half, okay? But I'm gonna cut them a little bit bigger today because I want to cook it a little faster. because otherwise we'll be here all day just waiting for it, right? All right, just wipe off our board. So how's it going, Bill? Things good in your world, I hope? Hopefully things haven't changed too much since last night. And then we can start talking about our green beans. I'm going to go grab some heavy cream. It is very much a working kitchen. I'll break out some things ahead of time, but for the most part, I like to cook with you exactly how I cook at home. So I apologize if it's not through the magic of television, put this in, take this out. It's kind of not exactly how things roll in my house. All right, so I have a small pot. I have some heavy cream, and I'm just going to put I'm going to put about a cup of this in. All right. Then we're going to take a little bit of that butter. Actually, we're not going to take any butter because we're going to use the truffle oil. And that's going to bring enough fat to the party, plus the heavy cream. So we don't need that. All right. But normally, if I want to make mashed potatoes, that would be like, say, your normal at-home mashed potatoes. Put some butter in here. Because one of the trick to really good mashed potatoes is to preheat this cream. So we'll do that in a little bit. We're going to preheat that. So while we're doing that, let's prepare our green beans. So our potatoes are going to be boiling away. They're going to take a little while. I did not salt the water. If you remember from pasta, I salt it when I use it, not before. It helps save your pots. So these green beans are pretty big. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through and just kind of give them a little cut, get them down to a little reasonable size. And you'll notice I also am cutting these on a bit of an angle. I like angles. I don't like straight edges. What can I say? So, all right. Moving along. Got our tea. Having a good day. It's gorgeous out today, although I'm in Pennsylvania, so they're calling for snow by the end of the week. It's May, for crying out loud. And they're calling for snow. What the actual heck is going on with that? I do not know. All I know is if it's something I have to shovel, I'm going to be very upset. So salting the water, yeah. So two things happen if you pre-salt the water. If you're using aluminum pots, they can potentially they're reactive pots is what we call them. But the salt can actually damage and pit an aluminum pot, so you don't want to do that. Number two is you don't know how much water may boil off from the time you salt till the time you use it. So you could just be wasting salting water that's not even going to be there. So, it's just kind of wasteful. So I just do it right at the last minute. All right, I'm just getting these green beans to be about the same size. They're a little on the big side. Chopping off the ends. These are pre-snipped. Coming up on green bean season, not quite there yet. Not quite there. So let's talk a little bit about the sous vide and what's going on here. So I really love having a sous vide cooker. Now, it's called a circulator, or it goes by different names, but ultimately what you're doing, and we used to do this in restaurants, would be that we would control a water bath and then put bags of different prepared veggies, because I could throw a bag of veggies in there, like I could throw these green beans in there, and they could sit there all day, and then they would never get bad. Like, they would stay at the right temperature, perfect doneness. So it was great for us in a restaurant environment to use, but they were always super expensive. So the nice thing is that has changed, and now the prices come down, and now you can get this, like I got this Lenovo here for like $100, and it's Bluetooth. I can, let's see, I should have it connected at the moment. This is pretty trick, because what I can do is I can fill this with ice, a little bit of water, and my food. And then I can put my guy in here, and he hooks up via Bluetooth, and he should hook up. Yep. Seeing if it comes up. But then I can be at work if I don't work at home, and I can actually turn it on when I see the temperature hits 41, 42 degrees, and it kind of gets out of there. So it's pretty cool. Let's see. So it's pretty fat. I haven't used the app in quite a while because, you know, I've been working from home. Oh, there we go. All right. So it's just a very handy device. So, you know, a lot of people jumped on the Instapot bandwagon, and that's cool. I kind of went on the circulator wagon because I just think it's great. Now, during, like, when I do ChrisCon and things like that, my big home convention, I will literally have a big cooler sitting out back, and that cooler will have, last year I put 2 in there because I think the first year I burnt mine out. But I had my friends and mine in there both going, and we had it cranked at like 169 degrees. It's sitting on a 90-degree deck because it was warm that weekend. Ran it for like 36 hours and cooked 4 full-size pork butts in that thing. And we had the best shredded pork. It's a great way to do it. So I highly recommend, you know, if you want to do some nice long-term cooking, that it's absolutely great. So good for that. How I use it in real life: fish cooks very quickly. Meats and things need a little longer. I want to give them about an hour or 2. But the nice thing is you're not going to overcook your food. So the salmon's going to go up to 127 degrees, and it's going to hold it at that temperature. And it's going to get 127 degrees all the way through. So let's take a piece of steak. If I have a nice big piece of steak, and I want it cooked rare or medium rare, let's say 125 degrees. I want it cooked where it's going to be, you know, red, not super bloody, and it's going to be done all the way through. Then I dial up the sous vide and I drop it in and let it cook. And that meat will be perfectly medium rare all the way through. Okay? And then I just take it out and sear it real quick. Now, what I like to do is I like to cook a little bit under my final temperature. That way when I sear it, because obviously that's going to cook it more, right? So that searing kind of gives it that nice caramelization on the outside that you really, really like. That crispy, caramelized, gets the salt in there and everything. So it allows you to have this piece of meat that's cooked perfectly all the way through. It also has some great benefits as far as like what slow cooking would normally do. And that is that it's going to, you know, break down meat over a long period of time, which means it's going to break down the connective tissues and make things better over, you know, if you leave it in there for a few hours, like say a slow cooker or something like that, it breaks down connective tissues and makes things fall apart. Hence why that picnic butt that I talked about, literally just when I went to shred it, it just fell apart in pieces and bits, and it was amazing. So highly recommended. You know, this container was, I want to say, like $11 on Amazon, and then I just took a jigsaw and I cut the lid out. You could buy fancy containers. Anovo sells one. It's pretty schwanky and stuff. But really, all it is this is kind of like a fish tank heater, right? And it's got a little itty bitty fan on the bottom that just spins, so it circulates the water. Hence why it's called a circulator. Nothing too fancy. If you don't want the lid, you do want to put a cover on it. Helps keep the heat in, which, you know, reduces the strain and helps you keep a good unit lasting very long. I will tell you, my last unit did break. It stopped working, but Anovo replaced it. great warranty service, shipped it back. They sent me a new one, done. Then the last thing I did is in the bottom here, there's a silicone trivet. We sell these at Sur La Table, and I saw that and I'm like, oh, that's perfect, because what it does is it sits in the bottom and it's got holes in it so that my food doesn't rest against the bottom. It can kind of sit on that, and that way water can get all the way around it. Not necessary at all. It was $8 for me, so I'm like, why not? You know, I picked that up. So this guy just lives, you know, this water I've used twice because I cooked on Tuesday. So I just save the water and I use it again. So that way it also doesn't have to be wasteful of the water unless you want it to. If your bags don't break, there's no need to do it. Now here's a point on the bags. So the vacuum seal bags are great because what I can do with the vacuum seal bags is I can buy a whole pork loin. I can cut it down and break it up into components, and I can make steaks and roast, and then I can season them. I can throw them in those not Ziplocs, those airtight bags, and I can vacuum seal them, and then I can throw them right in the freezer. And that way, when I want dinner, you know, a month later, I can just pull one out and drop it right in. That's it. The whole trick is you can use, like the salmon that came out in those containers, that would have been fine to just put in here, but I wouldn't have got any flavor in there. So that is not ideal. You want to make sure it's seasoned before it goes in here. Otherwise, you're losing a huge opportunity to add flavor to something, which I would argue is one of the reasons I do this, is because it really adds a lot of flavor to food. So we're going to let the salmon go. You can, I don't know if you can tell here on the camera. It's a little hard to tell, but you can see it's a little dark in the center. You can start to see it's cooking through. It's been in there a little over 10, 12 minutes, so it hasn't been in very long. But we're going to let that run. We're going to do that dead last, all right, because we want to make sure that that's cooked as much as possible. I like my salmon, depends. I can like it medium rare. I can do that where it's, but it has to be right on the edge. I like it fully cooked for the most part. So, so exciting. Sous vide is pretty cool. You can do some other things. You can, hard boiling eggs you can do. Soft boiling is a little trickier. You have to do that in 2 steps because the outside cooks at different, the whites cook at different temperatures than the yolks, so you have those problems. But, you know, all in all, I like that it's a kind of a fire and forget method of cooking, right? We can just kind of put our food in here. I can go off and do whatever. Even if my salmon stays in here for 3 hours, it's going to be very brittle, but it's not going to ruin it. It might throw off the texture and it might get a little mushy after much more than, say, 2 hours or so. But I still have a lot of leeway. And if I'm playing with a steak or something like that, I have even more room to play with. So highly recommend it. But it's like one of those things. People ask me a lot. They're like, should I buy this? Should I? I don't know if you should buy that or not, because I don't know your circumstance. If it's something you need and it's something that you can get benefit from, yeah, absolutely pick it up. But if it's not, don't waste your money on things. Gadgets and everything are very cool. All right, so we got some garlic. I'm gonna chop this up because we're gonna throw this in with our green beans. I like to whack my garlic. Smash the cloves, and then I just pick out the skins. Boop, done. And chop it up. I think I should do a knife class. Do you think that's something you guys would want? If it is, let me know in the comments. Leave it down there. Happy to walk through and, you know, tell you to show up, bring a carrot that day, bring a couple potatoes, and we'll have a little knife class. I also thought about doing some Zoom cooking classes. Thought that could be interesting, but all right. just going to throw that in that little dish there. All right, so our mashed potatoes are going away. It's kind of one of those. It's one of those meals that's pretty straightforward. All right, Vitaly. Ah, okay. Knife sharpening, we could cover that. Hell, I could do knife sharpening right now if you want. You ready? Knife sharpening. This one's for you, Patrick. All right. This does not sharpen a knife. This is what's called a honing steel. This is specifically designed just to do, it's to realign the edge of your knife. If you look at the edge of your knife under a microscope, you'll see there's edges and they're all going all kinds of different directions. This helps realign all those edges so they're going the same direction, which means your knife is sharper because they're all going the same way. All right, so if I want to use this, what I teach people in my knife skills class is take this, put it straight up and down on your board. If you want, you can even put a towel on there if you don't have a cutting board. All right, hold it straight up and down, and then we're going to take our knife, and our knife is going to be at a 20-degree angle. So if you think about it, 90 degrees is out here. 45, go halfway more, should be 22 and a half roughly, right? That's about what you want, okay? Like an eighth of a pie wedge. And then just drag it from tail to tip. And you're going to do that on each side. And you can do it 1, 2, 3, and then do 1, 2, 3. Then that works. Now, don't overdo it. Only give it like, 3 to 5 licks a side. That's all it needs. Don't try to be, big old chef until you're comfortable with it. This method is just as fine, and your hands are out of the way completely. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. Now, German knives only. All right, we're not going to talk about Japanese knives because doing ceramics, doing thin blades, and things like that is slightly different. But if you're using just core German knives, this method is completely fine. So I just have a duo stone. So I've got a fine side and a coarse side. That's it. I don't, nothing too fancy. I clean it with a little bit of mineral oil, but for the most part, I like a dry stone. I don't like a wet stone. It's just kind of my preference. Now, again, you can also, if you're doing Japanese hard steel, you do need wet stones and things. But we're going to start on the coarse side, which if you're looking here, you can kind of see, for me, it's the dark side, and you can see it's got a lot more texture to it. I'm going to set it down on something that won't move, and I'm going to use that 20-degree angle again. So this time I'm going to hold the knife here, and I like to hold my fingers against the edge, and this just helps keep the blade from walking and helps me stay in touch with it. So again, I'm going to start here at the edge of the knife. I'm going to drag it across the whole edge. All right, and I'm doing all the way from the heel all the way out to the tip, and then flip it over. So about 3 licks on a side. All right, looking good. Flip over your stone to the fine side, and let's repeat that. All right, and then we bring back our steel and just hone that edge. And let's see if I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. There you go. Helps if you hold the paper, right? So there you go. Patrick, maybe I did, but I really like it, so I wanted to wear it again. All right, now I'm going to take my green beans and I'm going to drop them right in the water for my potatoes. All All right, and why I'm doing that? Why should I boil another pot of water? The water in here is just fine. Maybe it has a little starch in it. Who cares? But I'm just going to blanch these. All right. I'm going to turn on my cream mixture on a very low heat. It's over here. You can't see it. It's on my other burner that's a little smaller. All right, and I'm just going to cook these green beans for probably until they're what we call al dente, right? So they're going to get mostly done, probably about 80% of the way done. We don't want them to be mush because what we're going to do is we're going to saute them when we're done. And why we're going to do it that way is if I just take these and try and saute them, chances are the garlic's going to burn. They're still not going to get done, things like that. So it's kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's a great way to do it. I love blanching my vegetables. So what we're going to do is while this is blanching, I'm just going to grab a little bit of ice. And we're going to throw some water in that. And why we're doing that is because when these come out, I want to stop them from cooking. So what we're actually going to be doing is what's called blanch and refresh. All right, this works for any of your green vegetables. If you want to keep them super, super bright green, but you still want to have some other cooking methods, then I like this. So we're going to cook them, get them about most of the way there. Then we're going to drop them in here. I'm going to take my knife and just pop them in the potatoes. Potatoes are feeling good. They're getting there. How often do I sharpen my knives? Good question. So this guy, this is my daily driver. This is just a basic Henkel's. It's nothing super fancy. I lost my good one. People stole them. It's just a good 8-inch chef knife that I use literally every day. So this guy gets sharpened on a stone probably once a month. All right, and you saw how long that took, right? But my other knives, not nearly as much. Maybe my slicer would probably be next in line that I might use for that. And then a boning knife, if I have a lot of boning work to do, I will break out and sharpen a boning knife before I use it, because that you really need to have super sharp, because my boning knife is also my fillet knife. It's double duty, right? All right, so when they start to get a little pliable, that's when we're going to pull them out. And I'm just putting them, I just have them sitting in here in a strainer. Again, I'm only doing a little bit. It's only for me and Sharon, so I don't need a ton of food tonight. But if I were doing more, you could absolutely have another pot. I'm just trying to show you an alternative way that you don't need to have 15 pots sitting there getting messy, right? Wow, it's only been half an hour. I feel like it's been longer. I feel like we're making really good time learning stuff. But yeah, I definitely the chef knife is the core tool that I use for everything. So it's definitely one of those that you want to invest in a good one, and make sure it's good quality. Go to a store, test drive them, have some, take them out, cut some things, not yourself preferably, and figure out what you want, because everybody gets something a little different and needs a different feeling knife. I have a Santoku that I will use for vegging things, because it's got this long flat blade, but that's usually only if I'm like chopping veg and things. But I think we can do a knife class. I think that'll be fun. I'll go through all my different types of knives, what they're used for, what they're good for, how to care for them. We can do that. How to make some cuts, how to use them, how to not cut yourself. All right, so I'm just going to take this and I'm just dropping it in the ice water. And all I'm doing here is I'm just trying to stop the cooking process. All right, so I would do the same thing. This works for pasta too. If you need to cook pasta and you're not quite, you want to get it done and out of the way, knives out. Yeah, I could do that. Do I have to speak in a very foghorn leghorn accent the whole time though? Because I don't know if I can do that. But you can do this with pasta too, and then you can stop cooking your pasta. Cook things about 80% using this method. If Thanksgiving, this is what I do. I take my veg and I cook them, and then I drain them off, cool them off, and then I'm going to drain these, right? And then they're ready. All I have to do is saute them, and you're going to see just how fast this sautés. It's very, very quick and a lot of fun. And good. So I think we're done cooking. So they are blanched and refreshed. That's our culinary term of the day. All right, blanch and refresh. Blanch, you know, the Golden Girl Blanche. All right. So I'm just checking our potatoes here, and I'm just kind of sticking a knife in to see if I encounter resistance. You know, because it's futile and all that. Bring it down here so you can see it a little better. Just to see if the potatoes are quite ready. They're almost there. All right. This guy. Let's talk about this guy. This is the secret to potatoes. Okay, it's called a potato ricer, a masher. It's called many things. You can buy some that are adjustable. The cup comes out, so I can just take this and clean it very easy. But this thing is what makes good fluffy mashed potatoes possible. All right. The other thing is, be careful of the potatoes you use. If you are using a potato that is, grab the wrong one, that is super starchy, like a russet, then they're designed more for baking. They're going to be very chewy. And I'm sure you've all had gummy mashed potatoes in your life. It's the wrong potato that was used. So, you know, bear that in mind. Pick the right potatoes. These are just basic white Idahos, but I like Goldens. Goldens are definitely great. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually stack the deck a little bit in our favor when we do this. All right. My cream is hot, so I want my cream hot. And again, if I want butter in my mashed potatoes, I would put some in the cream and get that hot as well. One of the best things you can do for a mashed potato is to actually have it where it's all the ingredients are hot. If you add cold in, it's going to cool them down and it's going to hurt them. Okay, so there you go. Now this guy here, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the super big pieces in there for the moment. We're going to grab a smaller one so I can show you. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy and I'm going to put the skin side down in the cup. Put that back on. All right, see, skin side down. And then this way, when I squish it, it squishes through and it leaves the skin behind. All right, that's the trick. And then you can just kind of just either move the skin out of the way. You can pull it out of here. It's so easy. You can use a food mill. That works too. Most people don't have a food mill unless they're big into canning and things, though. So the potato ricer is a little easier to kind of keep on hand. All right. So the easiest way is just as you put these in here, and you can take them out and drain them before you're handling them because they are hot, and just squish away. Oh yeah. And then you can just kind of even just peel the skin off the back of this. Come on, how easy is that? Never have to peel a potato again. All right, do wash them, okay? You didn't see me do that step, but prior to putting them in here, I did wash them, okay? Potatoes grow in the dirt. Dirt is gross. Wash potatoes, especially if you like to eat skin. Boom. Oh my goodness, so hard, so hard. I don't even have to take this off the back. To be honest with you, if it stays there, I don't care. The other thing I like to do with mashed potatoes is not use a whip or a whisk or anything like that, okay? We're gonna get to that in a second, but I don't like to, I got my big old KitchenAid, but I don't like to use it for mashed potatoes. All right, just take a spatula, scrape it off, kind of like a Play-Doh machine. Get rid of these. Done. All right, so we have our nice rice potatoes. Now these are pretty fluffy in here already, okay? So if I were to grab a spatula or something and start to whisk them and mix them, I'm going to lose that fluffiness, okay? So what we want to do is we want to add our cream in, and we're going to do it very slowly and in bits. So I'm just going to pour a little bit in. All right, and this is just cream. Maybe it's cream and butter. And I'm just going to fold this, which means I'm just going to lightly move it around and flip it over on itself. All right, and then once that's absorbed, I'm going to put in a little bit more. All right, notice I'm not whipping it, I'm not mashing it around. All right, just keep doing this very lightly, delicate. You know, it's the same motion I use when I'm doing egg whites, okay? Getting there, almost. So probably not going to need all the cream I had, which is fine. Can use it for something else later. There we go. Also, we're going to get a little bit of moisture coming off of the truffle oil. All right. So we're right at the point where we're going to season. These are nice and soft. If you don't like them as smooth as this or as soft as this, you can obviously not put as much cream in it. I'm going to put about a teaspoon of kosher salt in here. And before I move it, I'm just going to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Does not, or truffle oil. Does not take much. That was maybe a teaspoon. All right. And then last but not least, we are going to well, when I can find it, we'll do it. There it is. Okay. I'm just going to use a little white pepper. All right. I like white pepper because it's not going to leave little black flakes. And with the, you know, the truffle, it's just nice and white. But I still want pepper in there. But white pepper is great. Just be careful. A little goes a long way. All right, so we're ready. Give that our taste test. Oh my goodness. I love a good, just good white truffle flavor. Now, you don't have to use the oil. You could also use truffle salt. That's a completely other way of doing it, and that's completely fine and acceptable. just try to get a good one that's not just a, truffle flavored thing. You want something that's got a good amount of flavor to it. The last thing is maybe you want to present this with just maybe a little grated Parmesan is probably all I would do. All right. So we're gonna get our pan fired up here. Now I'm gonna put this someplace warm. So I'll put it over here near the potatoes. That way it can stay nice and caliente. All right, I got our green beans. Now our green beans are going to be, we're just gonna saute them. This is gonna be very, very quick. All right, I have my tea. I'm just gonna warm my pan up. If you can see here, I usually don't like to crank pans. So this is only on about medium high. Don't crank your pans all the way up because that causes them to bubble and warp. I wish I had one to show you how bad it gets, but it definitely gets pretty bad. All right. So what we're gonna need on this, guys, we're gonna need a little, just some fresh garlic, salt, pepper, and olive oil. I normally don't saute with olive oil because olive oil can't handle the high heats. So normally I reserve that strictly for things that can generate that flavor. Because this is cooking so quick and it's not like a sear and it's not super high temp, olive oil is completely great and it's gonna help bring some nice earthiness to it. So I keep my olive oil in a little pork jar needs to be cleaned up here because I buy it in a big can. So it's nice to have this, and I just got a speed pour so I can just kind of drizzle it and go. So highly recommend having it accessible. It also slows down actually how much you use because the speed pour controls how much you get, right? And that's why bartenders use it and everything. So it slows down, how much you're using, which means it's going to be a little more realistic. Now, I have a little truffle sea salt here, but this is a black truffle, so it's a slightly different flavor than your white truffle. I love white truffle a little bit better, but I think this will be a nice addition to our beans. So we're going to use that instead of regular kosher salt. That's just a little Italian black truffle gourmet sea salt that my niece gave me. Thank you, Heather. I use it from time to time. All right, so pan's nice and warm. When the pan is warm and I'm ready to use it, that's when I throw my oil in. Don't throw it in before because God forbid something happen and I need to walk away, I can do that. All right, now, if I were throwing shallots in, they go in first. But I'm throwing garlic, so we're going to dump that in and we're just going to saute this for a few seconds. All right, and I'm not trying to do this over a super high heat. I just want to open up the oils in the garlic and kind of get them to come out. So it should be very fragrant. What I'm trying to do is literally perfume the oil with a little bit of that garlic flavor. That's what we're trying to do. We're really trying to make this oil a garlic oil. All right, not trying to fry the garlic. In fact, I want the garlic to be nice and soft in color. I don't want it to get brown, and I definitely don't want it to get dark. All right, now I'm gonna do this right now. We're just gonna saute this for a few seconds. Grab our plate because it's time to start thinking about that. All right, just when it's about ready to go, I'm gonna take my beans. And what you're hearing is the water on the beans, right? That's what's sizzling because as soon as it hits, and you want to get it mixing right away because if you don't get it mixing right away, that garlic's going to stick to the bottom of the pan and that's going to cause it to get burnt, to get bitter, and everything like that. All right, now I'm going to season. Give it a nice cover of salt. And we're going to give it a good stir. A little cracked pepper. I love an electric food mill. I can use it one hand. All right, now let's think about this process. If I did this with fresh green beans that I didn't blanch, I'd have to keep cooking and cooking, and I'd have to add water, and I'd have to keep cooking. So that little extra blanch step, I mean, come on, it's not that hard to clean a pan of water, okay? It's really not. So it really, oh, look how bright and green these are. And they're almost ready. All I have to do is literally just heating them through because we've already cooked them. That's the best part. All right, now I am using a non-stick pan, if you're paying attention. And this is a great job for it because I'm not trying to make a pan sauce with this. I just want, you know, to use one pan. And to be honest with you, we're going to use this pan right again for our salmon. Okay, I could use cast iron. I could use other pans, but why make more of a mess? Okay, let's be kind to the person who has to do our dishes, whether that's you or somebody else. All right, when they're done, we're just going to pull them off. We're going to get all that garlic out of that pan because if we don't, guess what? Yeah, it sits behind, going to get burnt, going to get nasty, especially when we start heating our pan up to sear our salmon on it. So we're coming up on an hour mark. So our fish we put in nice and early, right away. I mean, they were a little thicker, so that's okay. So then we have our green beans. Keep those warm on the stove. We're going to put this pan back on, and I'm going to put just a little oil in it, not too much. I'm just going to keep it on a nice low heat so it's staying warm. And then let's do our sous vide. So I'm going to turn this guy off. All right, and I generally just unplug it. All right, pop the lid. Remember, this water is 128 degrees, 127 degrees, so it's warm. All right, and then let's pull our fish out. Now, I'll show you real quick. This is just basically what the circulator looks like. So you can see here. Maintenance on it is pretty simple. I mean, think about it. As long as nothing breaks in here and your water's nice and clean, nothing really gets dirty, but it just twists right off. And you have the heating element and just that little itty bitty fan at the bottom. You know, there's not too much. But what I will do is take this guy and I will clean this. You can run it through the dishwasher. That's fine. This is probably going to get dirtier. And just kind of wipe this down by hand. This is the guy that's attached here. That's the thermostat that makes sure that it runs at the right temp. That's it though. Okay. So pretty straightforward, and it just kind of slips on and twists and locks. And then you can take this guy off and I can put it on all different kinds of pans and pots and things like that. What I tend to do is it just lives in this pot or in this, we call it a cambro. It just lives in there all the time. And then I just throw that right on my shelf. And when I'm ready for it, I pop it out. All right, let's talk about searing food because we're going to give this a good sear. Now, when it comes to sous vide, you know, a lot of people like to get the blowtorch out, and that's cool. That's fine. It's not my style. I don't tend to have a blowtorch around, but I'll do it on occasion. I will either put it in the oven and broil it, or most of the time I'm going to sear it. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop it back on. But to get a good sear, we need to dry the surface. And as you can guess, the salmon has given off a lot of moisture. Okay. Now, I could be honest with you, I could just pluck this salmon out and eat it right now and be very happy. But I really like a good sear. It's to me, I think it's definitely important to the texture. I like that crispiness that you get on a piece of salmon. I really do. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly pat. I don't want to pull off all the spices that I have on here. Okay, and I can put some more back on if I desire. I can smell it. I really smell them spices already. But I do want to kind of dry this out. Coming up, I'll have to do a good searing special and walk you through how to properly sear foods and things like that. And one of the keys is always have a good dry product. All right. Now, once this is ready to go, this is where you see how it's just kind of flaking off a little bit. That's because we don't have a skin on there, and I'm just going to drop that down. All right. One reason why I like to use this is I can just kind of gently roll my salmon onto that. All right. Now I like to tell my students, hero side down. The side you want to serve, the pretty side, you want that to go down. I don't like to see the skin side of salmon. That's just me. That's not my favorite part. All right, so let's get our wow, that's amazing. All right, so we got our green beans. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop some here. We're gonna put it right smack in the middle. Fancy time, we're gonna grab our potato. We're just gonna, you can scoop it on, or you can make these little, just take a spoon and just kind of mold a quick football shape with it. Okay, we call that a quenelle, but it's just something a little different I thought I'd show you. All right. And then this is just let it sit. Okay, notice I haven't fussed with it. I dropped it and it's sitting in the pan. Let me move that out of the way and give you guys that camera. So it's just sitting in here, okay? I'm not fussing with it. I'm not moving it around. It's just hanging out, and that's it. That's gonna allow you to get a nice crusty edge around the outside of your salmon. If you keep moving it, if I try to shake the pan a lot, if I try and do all that stuff, everything I'm doing is counter to getting a good sear. All right? Also, my stove's only on medium heat. I'm not cranked up, okay? Searing doesn't mean super high heat. It means a good heat over a prolonged period of time. So, number one I told you about searing is you basically dry it, get it as dry as possible. If I'm cooking steaks, I have them out for half an hour beforehand. Before I give them a quick salt and then let them rest at room temp for like an hour if possible. All right, and then when you put it in the pan, let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. All right, just let it sit in there and let it just sear and get nice and caramelized on that outside. All right, if I'm cooking from raw, I'm gonna look to the sides to see if I can see it kind of the cooking kind of creep up the side of the fish. Or if I'm seeing like moisture bubbles on the top, if I'm cooking from raw, they're my signs. All right, but what I can see is I can see the fat starting to creep out. So we're gonna gently, very gently go in here. And flip. This is a fish spatula. My goodness, you need to get one of these. This is, I don't tell you to buy many tools. A good fish spatula is amazing. It's super flexible, so that's really nice. So that, and you saw how easy it got under that salmon, right? So Highly recommend. And again, with the backside, now the backside doesn't need to sear quite as long as that front side did, but look at that. Oh my goodness, that looks delicious. It's got some nice color on there, that kind of the brown sugar that was in that sauce, just kind of there. I tell you, you guys need to scratch and sniff the screen and tell me what it smells like. Oh, so good. And we're just gonna let it go, let it go, let it go. A little early to be thinking about dinner, but hey. But we're done. It's almost an hour. Here we are. We're sitting at the end. I'm just waiting for this to sear. We'll give it a taste. We're gonna call this a done day. All right. So you can see here, just starting to get brown on the bottom. And if you want, you could tip it and do the sides too. If I had a really thick cut of steak, I might do that. And I'm just gonna drop that right there. Booyah. All right, turn this off and get that guy out of the pan. That'll be for Sharon tonight. Make her a little plate. Give you all the pretty one, the white one here. She gets the Corellware. And when I say you, I mean us. So there we have it. So let's not too shabby, huh? Let's take a knife right in the middle and see how our salmon's cooked. Oh my goodness. So can you can see that? Hopefully you can just kind of make out just how it's done, but it's not like that super overdone, you know, white pinky color that you get like if you get salmon out or if you overcook it. It's still got some moisture. It's still got a little fat. And like I said, that's 128. Oh. But you may want to play with that. If you like a medium rare with a little like actual pink and kind of the soft fleshy kind, then you might want to actually take that and maybe drop that. But like 128 seems to be perfect. It holds together. It sears really well. I'm able to sear it for quite some time. I don't have to worry about it. When I started going over 130, I tended to find that the salmon would be completely done, and that's great if you want it poached. Okay, if we didn't sear it, go ahead, go to like 132. But when I started to get over 130, I found that the salmon just kind of crumbled a little too much for my taste. So not a fan of the seared salmon that way. So I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna snack out, and I'm gonna enjoy my afternoon. Oh. Good wild caught salmon, absolutely delicious, absolutely. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. Maybe you add something. Maybe you picked up a potato ricer. Let me know what you think. Maybe the blanch and refresh method. Maybe it's just as simple as, you know, you got to use heavy cream that you warmed up prior to using. I think you got a multitude of tips today on top of, you know, the fancy piece of equipment in a sous vide circulator, which I highly recommend. So you got some stuff to play with. If you have questions, please reach out, ask away. I'm happy to hear them. I do check my YouTube comments, so if you have questions and you want to leave them in there, go right ahead. You can also tweet them at me. If you have ideas for shows, let me know what you want to see. I tend to do cooking on Thursdays at 2 Eastern. I have a lot of fun doing it. I think next week we're going to spend some time doing some coffee, maybe some beignets. Maybe we'll make some pita or some crackers. I think it's going to be kind of a nosh snack day. So that's kind of it. So I hope you enjoyed. Have fun. Enjoy your cooking. If you try sous vide, let me know. Let me know your results. I'd be curious to see. All right. Be good out there. Hello, Emma. Yes, you're a little too late. Just missed it. We're just closing up right now. I got done in an hour, so we're going to call it here. So thanks so much for hanging out today. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you on Sunday. I still don't know what set we're going to be playing next week, so I'm not sure what we'll be drawing. So stay tuned. We'll find out. So until next time, y'all, have fun, be safe, and be kind to each other.